Hi, everybody. I am Kathryn Peterson, Assistant Director of New Audience Initiatives at Lincoln Center in New York. And a huge thanks to you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. It's my first time in Norway, and I think I want to move to Bergen. So before I get started, I just want to give a little bit of background on myself. I'm a classically trained French horn player. I studied at the Juilliard School, which is one of Lincoln Center's constituents, but decided that I didn't want to go the performance route because I thought I could have a bigger impact on the admin side. So from there, I started my career at Carnegie Hall working with foundations and then moved on a couple years later to Lincoln Center, where I oversee the Young Patrons program. And I've been there for about 4 years now, and over those 4 years, my role has grown from simply overseeing the Young Patrons program to helping Lincoln Center think about how we engage new audiences more broadly. So with that, I'm here today to speak a little bit about our Young Patrons program, what it is, what it does, what we've learned over the past few years, and then share a couple of case studies to give you a feel for how Lincoln Center is thinking about this work and how it fits in with our priorities at large. So the Lincoln Center Young Patrons program is a membership group for people in their 20s and 30s, and in New York, it's the leading community of young arts lovers and supporters. The program's about 15 years old, and it's really at the forefront of Lincoln Center's efforts to develop new audience and donors for Lincoln Center, but also for the performing arts more broadly. Our program serves 3 primary purposes. The first is civic leadership. So we strive to cultivate the next generation of audiences and supporters through opportunities like our steering committee, which is similar to a junior board, and by engaging that community in different thought partnership activities across the entire campus. Our second purpose is cultural programming, so we're hoping to expand and engage new audiences through diverse and unique performances, social events, and educational events, with the goal of sparking further interest in all of the art forms that we produce on campus. And then the final purpose is community engagement, so we aim to increase members' commitment to the organization through volunteer opportunities and other ways to engage with a lot of the programs that Alex mentioned earlier. So to become a young patron, you must join at one of 4 membership levels, $250, $500, $1,500, and $5,000. All of the dues that we raise through Young Patrons membership support Lincoln Center's arts education and audience development initiatives. And in turn, you'll receive access to a variety of events and benefits throughout the year. And of course, the higher your support, the more benefits and events you'll receive. So our program is really events-driven. We produce between 40 and 50 events per year for our Young Patrons group, which include performance outings, so taking groups of people to see some of our most in-demand performances that are often sold out to the public, and we'll do some sort of reception before or after, and oftentimes the artists will join us. We have our 101 series, which is curated especially for our Young Patrons program. These events combine live performance with an interactive discussion and a reception so that people can get to know each other and the artists afterwards. We, of course, have galas, parties, social events, and for our top 2 tiers, we take a more hands-on approach and bring them to private house concerts in people's homes, breakfasts with our president, dinner in our chair's home, things like that. So in addition to the events and volunteer opportunities, members also have access to discount tickets, open rehearsals, pre-sale access, concierge ticketing services, discounts to restaurants, and much more. So all of these events and benefits are really designed to rally people around Lincoln Center's mission, make Lincoln Center feel like a fun place to be, and build community along the way. So although our administrative staff oversees the day-to-day operations of our Young Patrons program, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the volunteer governing body that sits on top of this program that we call our steering committee or junior board. It's made up of 45 people, and they advise us on all aspects of our Young Patrons program, ranging from membership acquisition to retention to trying to get new ticket buyers in the door, fundraising, all of that. So we have them broken out into 3 different task forces. The first is artistic planning and community engagement. So they help us plan all of the events, pick what we take this group to see, and help kind of oversee the volunteer process. The second task force oversees our marketing and strategy efforts. So they work alongside Lincoln Center's marketing team in acquisition, campaigns, all of that good stuff. And then finally, we have development, which focuses on the fundraising aspect of the group. So this steering committee is valuable for the institution, not only because we look to them for counsel, but really because they bring a diverse range of perspectives to the group. So by letting them in on our planning process and kind of behind the scenes, we're able to so much better reach other people like them and bring them into Lincoln Center. So in the past 5 years, our Young Patrons program has grown by 60% in membership and 302% in dollars raised for Lincoln Center. And the number of our top 2 tiers has increased by 18 times. So just with those numbers alone, it's easy to see that there's a large appetite for arts patronage and membership programs for young professionals in New York. But it wasn't always like this, so I wanted to share a little bit about how we were able to take our Young Patrons group to the next level and how we're applying what we've learned through the Young Patrons to Lincoln Center's audience development efforts toward millennials and in particular more broadly. So where did it all begin? In January 2017, the Young Patrons hosted an event called Beethoven, 2 Eras, 1 Radical Spirit. The event was a first for Lincoln Center. We'd never done anything like this before, let alone on this scale, and it single-handedly took the group and our audience development efforts to new heights. So without telling you more about it, I'm going to play for you the promo video just to give you a sense for what this was. One moment. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it in the meantime. So this event was taking a look at comparing the artistic similarities between Kanye West and Beethoven. And as you can imagine, at Lincoln Center, a lot of people were anti this idea. So what kind of our thinking was behind it was Beethoven was this radical guy. He had all of these amazing compositions, amazing ideas, and really broke the mold at that time. And you could say the same for Kanye West. More so old Kanye than new Kanye if you're following him in the news now. But we decided to take this idea, put them together, and kind of use a music theory perspective to show how these 2 are together. And now we're ready to show you the promo video.
Despite the 200 years between them, Kanye West and Beethoven share a lot of artistic similarities.
In Beethoven 1, we used an orchestra to show how Kanye West's album Yeezus employed formal elements that were symphonic in scope. In Beethoven 2, we've added pieces from The Life of Pablo, which goes even further in exploring classical ideas.
2 Eras, 1 Radical Spirit. This is Beethoven 2.
So Beethoven was way more successful than we could have ever imagined. The event sold out with more than 900 attendees. 500 of those attendees were new to Lincoln Center. There were hundreds of people on the wait list, and the standby line was wrapped around the block. All of the attendees were under the age of 40, which was amazing for us given that our average age is 68. And we got a lot of new young patrons out of this event. And in addition, this event was featured in a lot of non-traditional press outlets for us, including Time Magazine, The Root, The Atlantic, Hypebeast, and many others. So it goes without saying that we at Lincoln Center were so thrilled with these outcomes, but since we didn't even know what to expect from Beethoven, we didn't have anything else remotely similar lined up afterwards. It was just like, we did this amazing thing, now what do we do with it? So with that, after many prior years of convincing, our leadership decided to make the young patrons and millennial audience development efforts an institutional priority. We ended up partnering with consulting firm McKinsey & Company, if you're familiar with them, in Norway on a pro bono basis to help us develop and formalize a cohesive strategy around all that we do and all that we hope to do around millennial audience engagement. So kind of what we wanted to get out of this was, number one, attract millennial visitors to Lincoln Center, so increasing the number of first-time visitors by kind of packaging and curating millennial-friendly programming and employing a digital marketing strategy around that programming to meet people where they're at. Second, we wanted to deepen young audience engagement and drive repeat attendance. So we would do this by targeting past attendees, friends or colleagues of young patrons, and really focus on the social and experimental qualities that appeal to millennials. And then finally, we wanted to increase our young patrons membership and funds raised, and especially get people to join at those higher level tiers. So first, we surveyed the entire cultural field in the US. We looked on campus, off campus, and even looked at organizations outside the US. And a few consistent themes emerged. So first, innovative programming matters. Many players are deploying contemporary or juxtaposing art forms to appeal to millennials, and a lot of places are also going further than that and exploring different social and political issues that are really interesting to this age group. So for example, gender equality, social equity, environmental issues, and things like that. The second thing is a wrapper surrounding existing programming is also really powerful. So many institutions are already doing this, but just some examples are doing more with your existing venue, experimenting with new and surprise venues, introducing interactive social and educational elements to complement these performances, reducing duration of your shows, and experimenting with other non-programmatic experiences. And then finally, we all know this, but the space is ripe for digital enhancement. So technology is obviously at the forefront of organizations' efforts to create these experiences that play to millennials' nativity. We also wanted to understand what people wanted to get out of arts organizations. So we worked with McKinsey on an extensive survey, multiple focus groups, and interviews to confirm our hypotheses around this area. And we found that, of course, digital channels matter most for millennials, so people learn about things through social media and other digital channels. But the thing that we learned through this that we didn't know before is that millennials are actually very willing to share their contact information with arts organizations. It's not like they're hearing from a bank or insurance company. They want to hear from us. Innovative experimental programming is the hook to get them in the door, so something like Beethoven is a perfect example of this. So we found that people want to attend things for interesting content or to try something new, and people are often seeking out experimental art forms versus something traditional. So this could mean anything from like shows unlike you've seen before, a new twist on a timeless classic, one-night-only productions, and things like that. And then cost if you get them through the door with innovative programming, cost is the barrier to repeat attendance. So a third of the millennials that we surveyed in the tri-state area don't attend more performing arts events just because it's too expensive for them to do so. And then finally, not all millennials are the same. So we did an extensive analysis of millennials' attitudes that revealed 5 distinct segments that vary significantly in terms of their level of engagement with the performing arts and their programmatic preferences. So just to quickly talk you through this, and these are kind of funny names, but the first one is passionate alt connoisseur. So they're educated, higher income, and they frequently attend performing arts events, and they're kind of more interested in the more alternative programming. The second segment that we found is experimental arts enthusiast parent. They're older, married, and attend kid-friendly events on the weekends, and they also favor more alternative programming. The third segment is weekend night out yuppie. So they're single, younger, and they are actually more interested in some of the traditional events, especially on the weekend nights. So a lot of our young patrons fall into this category. Number 4 is entertainment-seeking suburbanites. So they live out in the suburbs, so they have lower engagement with the performing arts overall, but they're willing to travel to events, but normally more mainstream events like a rock concert or a comedy show. And then finally, we have the disengaged spendthrift. They're more often unemployed, lower income, and they almost never attend performing arts events, and they're very highly sensitive to price. So now that we had all of these findings, I, along with our marketing team and a group of our young patrons, were tasked with designing and developing a series of pilot projects that hit on all of that we learned while staying true to who we are as an institution. And we've been working on these pilot projects for about a year now and have learned a ton. In fact, a lot of the findings that we've seen over the last year, we're now employing and beyond the young patrons into our series and events across the campus. So now I'd like to run you through a couple of case studies just so that you can see kind of the tactics that we're using in this area to bring in new young patrons, but also attract millennials to campus. So the first case study is around our performance outing and cast party for a show that we did called Black, White, Gray. With this, we wanted to take a more cohesive approach to millennial ticket buyers. They could choose to become a young patron if they wanted to, which is great, but it would be a huge win for us even if we could just get them through the door. So knowing that not all millennials are the same, we wanted to employ a marketing strategy around this event that was, number 1, innovative, number 2, had a wrapper of some sort, and number 3, involved something to do with the young patrons. So we chose to upsell ticket buyers for the young patrons party after the show. So our strategy was focused on solely on digital elements. So social ads. In terms of our social ads, we employed multiple tactics that kind of pulled on the levers of messaging, content, and video. So I just want to kind of show you what those looked like for us and what the different tactics we used were. Oh, sorry. Okay, so for this first ad, we used just the performance outings that the performance footage that the artists gave to us. So you can see that there. It had a 10-second view rate of 6.8%, which for Lincoln Center is actually very high. For this second ad that we did, we included a link to hear the show's original score on Spotify as the call to action. To sort of get them more engaged in the show and what the music would be. And that had a 10-second view rate of 4%, which is not as good as the first one, but that's still pretty good for us. And then this final social ad that we employed showed performance footage and party image. So this was made to kind of give people a feeling for what their experience at this event would be. Like if you bought a ticket, this is the kind of experience that you would have. And this performed by far the best. We had a click-through, or a 10-second view rate of 17%, which for us is extremely, extremely high. So for our email campaign, we ran social and email simultaneously. So this first email, we chose to use "You're invited" in the subject line. This is a subject line that we use for a lot of Young Patrons events, and it's extremely successful, so we wanted to try it out more broadly. And it worked really well with an open rate of 33%, and we think this is because people felt if you get something and it says "You're invited," it makes it feel like it's for you. So that performed really well. Our second email included a listicle called 5 Reasons Not to Miss Black, White, Gray. So something we do for the young patrons is kind of include more context and information and kind of hit on that educational component. So we wanted to do that here. This also did well with an open rate of 18% and a click rate of 11%. And then this final email linked to the Spotify playlist and also called out that the composer for the evening was going to be DJing our after party, which was just very cool. And so that had a high open rate and click-through rate as well. So overall, this strategy worked really well for us. The show totally sold out. We got a ton of new people in the audience, which was a huge feat for us because this group, Boy Blue, had never been to Lincoln Center before. So now we're really using all of these tactics in different ways across all of our programs at Lincoln Center. And then this second case study that I wanted to walk you through is about this show that we put on over the summer called KFactor, an orchestral exploration of K-pop. So taking all of the things that I've previously mentioned, we decided to commission another event in the same vein as Beethoven. And going into this show, we had so much more insight because we knew what data we needed to be successful. We knew how to track engagement. We knew that we needed follow-up events afterwards. So with this, we were able to test an extremely wide range of tactics from the programming elements to marketing elements and everything in between. And our goal for this was to try and get the most diverse, youngest, newest audience to Lincoln Center than we've ever had before. So before we play the video, you might be wondering why we chose to present K-pop at Lincoln Center. First, we felt that the musical complexity of K-pop is really misunderstood, and it in fact employs a lot of the same musical elements as you see in classical music, but it's difficult to hear when you're listening to the regular K-pop songs. So we chose to bring in an orchestra to showcase just how innovative and interesting and complex this music is, with the goal of getting them through the door this way and directing them to other Lincoln Center performances after that. And then second, we wanted to provide historical context for this show, so that it began with Korean classical music from the 1930s and worked its way up to modern day K-pop. So without saying much more, here's the trailer that we made for this show, and it ended up playing a huge, huge role in our marketing and promotion efforts, which I'll get to afterwards. Again, we weren't quite sure what to expect with this simply because we've never presented K-pop at Lincoln Center before. But the reaction was amazing. So you can kind of see here just the Twitter reaction that we had. This show really went viral on social media, which was amazing and doesn't really happen for us that often at Lincoln Center. And then so going back to the trailer, this trailer made it really easy for us to communicate KFactor as an idea across social channels. So we, I mean, you can kind of see some of the comments that we received here. Like, I hope they'll do a tour. I'm so going. Sounds super good. So this was really exciting to see that people were really rallying behind an idea versus just a performance, and it had an online life of its own, really. So to get a little bit into the ads, something that we did for this show that we hadn't done for anything else was we ran ads in 2 languages. So we did obviously English and Korean ads. They both performed really well, and it just allowed us to kind of target a population that we don't typically talk to at Lincoln Center. And the average cost per result is actually very low. We also made an ad that included party footage. We had a party after this, as we typically do with different Young Patrons events, that did very well. And we produced a GIF as well that named all the different artists that would be, whose music would be performed that night. And then just quickly, I want to talk you through the demographics and kind of what the results were with this. So we were absolutely beyond thrilled with the audience that we were able to get from this show. So just to point a couple things out, in terms of ethnicity, we have 43.8% Asian audience, which is very, very high for us. And then for age, you can see how young the audience was. We had 54% of attendees under the age of 40. I want to compare this with demographics from our White Light Festival that takes place every fall. So for ethnicity, we have 81% Caucasian versus just 7% Asian, and then less than 15% of people were under the age of 40. So very different between these 2 shows. So I think this case study speaks to innovative programming matters, but more so just highlights the different techniques that you can use to get different audiences in the door. If you engage with people in different ways, there's definitely a direct payoff. So as you can see, we're testing and trying out lots of new things designed to bring people in the door at Lincoln Center and get them to join as members if they feel so inclined, or we're just happy to have them on campus in general. And although we're making headway in this area, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that all of this started with our Young Patrons program. I'm a huge believer in investing in outsiders that are able to advise us on what we're doing, because the truth is I don't know it all, we don't know it all, and by bringing those kind of people into our process, you're able to accomplish many amazing things. So I leave you with this. Think about how you can engage your communities in what you do, and I'm positive you will see great results. So thank you.